Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 40. The main focus for this video will be the finishing of the helicopter construction office. We have most of the buildings already completed, but that's only half the story. We also need to sort out many things beside that. But most of those things will take time to wrap up, so we will have plenty of time to do other things. We will set the stage for the railroad infrastructure in the steel production area by adding an end station for the future passenger trains to use. We will establish a rail distribution office to make sure things are kept well stocked, and we will fully electrify all the tracks we have planned out up to this point. We will also end up spending so much money on vehicles and on construction materials, that we will end up not only using up all our cash reserves, but also being forced to take out a couple loans to cope with the situation. Before we get started, if this is not your first video from this channel, you already know what to expect. If you want to be kept up to date, please consider subscribing, and if you like what you see, leaving a like will also help letting me know what to focus on. But enough talking, let's get into it. Thankfully, that ugly high voltage line is not yet finished, so demolition should be a quick thing. It's still going to be a waste, but not as much as it could have been. The biggest obstacle is the fact that we are now so far away from the demolition office, that we need to use manual assignments to get things done. Let's not forget that we also disconnected the cable car lines when we were planning out the railroad connection going up to the helicopter construction hub. We just need to make sure we use the correct towers for the correct lines, and we should be okay. It seems all the rail tracks are done, so we can safely set them all to be electrified. I also managed to leave the second construction hub's offices without telling them to only deliver mechanisms by truck. We are dealing with distances that make it necessary to fix this. We don't need bulldozers and excavators making such a long trip all on their own. And with the hub pretty much done with its planning phase, we can safely smooth down the terrain around it, getting rid of the unnecessary areas we won't be using. We will need to establish a source of workers for the helicopters, and for that, we need a passenger helipad in the town. I don't think we will use this for dedicated lines, only for construction, so let's not build a fuel storage for it just yet. That high voltage line is now gone. We can put down the underground cables that will power the steel mill. As it was pointed out in the comments, adding this is not strictly necessary, but it will take a load off of the local substations, so those can focus on the smaller buildings. And given how much power the steel mill uses, adding this connection to it is never a bad idea. I think the spacing between these towers could be a bit more even, so let's move one of them. And now that the terrain is back to normal, we can plant some foliage on it. For now, I just went with some undergrowth, but we will of course add trees later, once we have a better picture of the fully grown bushes. The bush saplings are so tiny that we cannot really tell where we planted them, so we need to wait for them to grow. Well, the helicopter offices are all done. Time to start on our spending spree, I think. First, let's tell the offices where they can pick stuff up. For now, we can only give them the asphalt, warehouse, and open storage destinations. The rest are still not finished. Well, this is what will eat up the majority of our cash reserves. Buying 8 helicopters is not an expense that should be taken lightly. But it will be well worth the investment. This place is pretty central in the Republic, so we will be able to use them for a long time to come. In the end, I went with 3 cargo Mi-10s, and 1 Mi-6 in each office. The Mi-6 will be used to bring in workers from the town, but it is also capable of moving materials if necessary, but obviously not as much as the Mi-10s. Also, I know that they are supposed to be called Mi, not Mi, but it sounds kind of weird coming out of Pali, so I just use Mi to make it sound less horrible. Anyways, time to deal with the machine deliveries to the offices. Most of them will be able to make it there on their own, but not all. The tower cranes will need a bit of help. The helicopters can carry only up to the 45 meters tall towers, so that's what we will buy. And there are no used ones, so we will need to get them brand new. We needed 4, and we have 4 trucks, so we will just tell them to pick up the tower, take it to the office, and then park themselves back in the depot. We need to do this twice, since we have 2 different offices we need to deliver those towers to. To nobody's surprise, they arrived well before any of the other machinery made it. Those things are slow, but we are not in a hurry. Okay. The trucks are back. We should reset their routes, so we can quickly give them new orders when the time comes. And let me tell you, these guys will be very busy once the cable car lines are up and running. The lines going to the coal mine will be able to use around 100 cars. That's a lot, and we need to move those cars out there manually. It's gonna take a while. Anyways, time to attempt another fix for the maintenance issues among the farming machinery. For that, we will need to build a garage right next to the farm, so we can give that place a 24/7 service. But, the power cables were in the way, and it got me a bit confused. At the very same time, we also ran out of money, thanks to the big spending spree we went on recently, and that cut off the power to the Republic. Since I cut that line at the very same time, I was really worried that I demolished more cables than I intended, so I was a bit panicked for a couple seconds. Obviously, all the services in the town went down, and people started to get really miffed with me. I took a quick look around the farms, making sure I didn't accidentally set power lines to be demolished that I didn't intend to remove. And just when I was checking the list of grievances, we had a small export, which put us back in the green financially, so I was once more perplexed about what could be the cause of the sudden flood of complaints. And then I finally glanced up at our bank account. Yeah, we're out of money. Those helicopters didn't come cheap. Things should be back to normal soon enough. Dealing with power-related constructions while running out of money to import said power at the same time was a recipe for the perfect storm of confusion. But we managed to get through it. Anyways, now that the offending power line is underground, we can place the maintenance garage next to the farm. Also, there was a brilliant observation about the farm's maintenance issues in the comments recently. We are not playing with seasons. If we did, we would get a single harvest per year, and the machines would sit idle for the rest of the year. That's plenty of downtime to take care of any maintenance they would require. Of course, the maintenance mechanics should be able to work with seasons off, but hey, at least now we have a good enough explanation as to why it was designed the way it was. But this also means that adding the garage next to it might not yield the results we are looking for. Every time a vehicle gets maintained, even if just a tiny bit, a timer gets added to them, and they will not be able to get repaired for a year. I did send an email to Peter, the head developer, regarding this issue, so let's hope he looks into it. I suggested maybe get rid of the 1-year timer, or if it's there for a good reason, maybe make it a toggle for certain vehicles, so this difficulty configuration can be a viable way of playing. Anyways, while I was rambling, I did check on the population statistics, and to my surprise, our recent power issues did not result in any kind of spike in either deaths or escapes. We didn't have power for quite a bit of time, and for some reason, we got through it relatively unscathed. That was a pretty big surprise. We did have a pretty massive death spike sometime last year, no idea what was the cause of that, I will need to investigate it later, but thankfully, our natural population replenishment took care of it real quick. Finally, the helicopter construction hub is complete. Now comes the part where we need to make sure they can actually reach all the towers and buildings we need them to reach. Thankfully, it is a pretty painless process. First, we give them their new construction office group, so we can use them as one, and then we just go around and start adding the construction sites. If we see one that is red instead of green, that's where we need to intervene. Like these two. There is no room for helicopters to land next to them, so we need to move them around a bit until there is space around them. Just like that. We need to do this everywhere along these lines, and around the two mines. Sometimes it only requires the repositioning of a single tower. Sometimes, we need to move things around a bit more than that. So far so good. It seems we will need to move this cable car station a bit farther away from the mine, so the choppers can access the factory connection. That's more like it. This place is ready to be built by helicopters. Unfortunately, all the progress we made with the happiness in the new town was erased by that power outage. Now we have more notifications than ever. And I really don't want to turn them off. They can be really helpful at alerting us to bigger issues. This is a bit of an edge case. Anyways, time to set up the deliveries for the farm maintenance office. Since we started supplying the first garage with a different office, we can repurpose this free one for the farm. It also needs workers. Let's be honest, it's a bit of a waste to move workers in from the town, when we have an ample supply of foreigners right next door. I think our economy can handle the pay for 15 of them. Well, we can only hope that this will somehow make things better at the farm. But as I've said, I am skeptical. The frequency of the work for the machines is too great, and they will likely end up parking themselves, get repaired a tiny bit before being called out to another field, which will reset their 1-year-long maintenance timer. I can only hope the developers look into it. Anyways, while I was fairly confident that the older delivery office was in range to take care of the trucks inside, I still decided to move it a bit closer, so we can keep them automatically repaired. Now, I didn't even bother checking if the old rail distribution office had enough free assignment slots to handle the supply for the new hub. It's already taking care of the previous two, as well as the Satsumagrad logistics. There was no need to check. We need a new one. But let's take this one step at a time. Apart from that distribution office, we also need an end station for the passenger trains. And this seemed like the most logical place for it. This is where the trains circle back to the town station. The only downside is that this place is pretty busy in terms of traffic, so things might end up waiting a couple seconds longer than they did before, since adding the end station here will result in path conflicts that didn't exist before. We also don't need too many tracks to make this work. We only need one track going in from the main line, and one track going out toward the town. That's all. 2 small tracks. Well, it seems one of the tracks is inaccessible. We can do a temporary fix by making the relevant lane on the town branch into a 2-way track. We just need to babysit the trains until it's built. Well, this is taking longer than expected. Which means the passenger train must be in the way. There we go. A fully functional end station. We might as well tell the passenger train to start using it. We will need it to be like this when we add the others not too far in the future. But first, let's put the signals back the way they should be. I would just end up forgetting it otherwise. Now the passenger line. We just need to replace the last waypoint with the end station, and it should work the way we need it to work. Now, back to the trains. As I've said, we will also need a new rail distribution office. The old one is already getting overused at this point. This side branch going to the waste management seems like a good place for it. Plenty of room, both for the building itself, as well as the trains in terms of queuing room. Okay, leveling the terrain was a bad idea. There's a first time for everything, I guess. We had a green ghost image before, so let's just put things back the way they were. Oh, come on. Work with me, please. There we go. I think this will do fine. And all 4 tracks are accessible. That's a relief. Well, not much we can do, except wait for things to be completed. The tracks and the building got finished right around the same time. Good show. Next, we need the wagons and the locomotives. Since we're in realistic mode, this means we need to do this through the customs house. Needless to say, this made it necessary to take out yet another loan. Buying so many vehicles is not cheap, you know. I think we can do this with a single locomotive. We just send it to the depot, so we can start giving it orders, set up the line between the customs house and the distribution office, and leave it to do its job. Damn! Another oil drill burned down. As I've said a couple times before, and I'm sure I will keep saying it whenever this happens, not much we can do about it. The pump jacks have very low health, and they are out in the middle of nowhere. Even if we gave the local fire station the trucks it needs, they wouldn't be able to drive through all the dirt roads to reach the fire on time. And I really don't plan on upgrading all these roads to gravel anytime soon. Anyways, the wagon delivery train got into a spot of bother with its pathfinding. There is no station crossing, since it's not really needed for this particular setup. We just needed to add an extra waypoint near a possible lane switching crossing nearby to put things back on track. Okay. I think it's safe to say that fast forwarding while in first person mode is not the best experience ever. Let's hope I remember to never do it again. And we have exactly one wagon left in the border crossing. I was hoping we wouldn't need another trip, but we do. And just before we sign off for today, let's set up the deliveries. We should also tell each storage building what they are allowed to hold, and how much. Oh, right. I completely forgot about the concrete and asphalt. We need workers for those. Thankfully they are relatively close to each other, so a single bus stop should be able to reach both. This site is closer to the concrete plant, but it should still be able to reach the asphalt plant without much problem, and if not, we can just build some extra footpaths. Well, I think this is it for today. We still need to sort out the signals near the steel mill area, but that shouldn't be much of an issue. The only thing standing in our way now are the cable car towers. The problem is, there are a lot of them, and they all need individual construction. Sometimes I wish they behaved more like power lines, instead of like conveyor towers. That would make construction a whole lot easier. Oh well. Also, an idea has been floated in the comments regarding our little artificial island for that power pylon we built in the last episode. We could build 2 power switches on the 2 shores instead, and run 2 underground cables instead. That would make it less ugly, as well as more realistic. I will definitely need to look into it, because it does sound like a great idea, and we should absolutely do it before things get too busy across the river. Anyways, if you haven't done it already, I'd love it if you subscribe to the channel, and leaving a like would also let me know that this video was worth making. If you feel that it was good enough, and you can afford it, please consider going to my Ko-fi page, which you can find in the description, and donate an amount that you feel is appropriate. And if you did like what you've seen, there should be links to some of my other videos and playlists on the screen. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next one.